Hello and welcome to Free the Mind UK, a chat with a therapist. I am your host, Dave Carson. I'm also a therapist and I work with hypnotherapy, integral eye movement, neuro-linguistic program, amongst many other change work techniques. If you want to check out what I do, you can find me on www.freetheminduk.co.uk. It's on my little banner at the bottom of the screen there. And tonight we've got a fabulous guest in the way of Sue Woodriffe. I'm really excited about this chat. We're going to be talking about the Bowen Technique. So I don't know about a lot of people that are watching, but I didn't know a lot about it before. So this is going to be an education in itself for a lot of people who've never come across it. But before I introduce Sue, I'm going to play our intro video. Here we go.
Not sure what therapy to choose? Free the Mind UK presents A Chat with a Therapist. Join us live for an up-close informal discussion of the various holistic therapies available, helping you make that important choice.
Hey, Sue, how are you?
Hi, David. Nice to see you.
It's lovely to have you on this evening.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to be very interested in finding out more about the Bowen Technique.
Well, yes, it's not that well represented or known.
Well known.
Lots of the UK, very big in Australia where it originated, but also in Eastern Europe.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into the nitty-gritty of that, Sue, if it's okay with you, you can give us a bit of a backdrop of how you got into this sort of work and, what sort of brought you in this direction.
Well, it was a very personal journey because I had a lot of knee surgery and accidents and knee surgeries when I was young.
Okay.
And that set up that wrecked my anatomy trains. We'll talk about those in a minute. Mm-hmm. So it set up a lot of other pain in my body there wasn't anything wrong. It was just the way the muscles were working. And I went to everything and I went to everybody and I tried everything. And the only thing that really helped me in the end, and the pain-wise, was Bowen.
Wow. How long ago was this, Sue?
Well, this was probably, 20 years ago.
Oh gosh.
So it was probably my late 40s. So yeah.
Okay. So how long have you been involved in it now then?
Well, my marriage broke down 8 years ago, and I then I'd always wanted to work with people. I couldn't because I was tied into various things. But once my marriage broke down and I could do exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah. I
started training straight away as a Bowen therapist, and I also started training with EFT. And my journey since then, I do a lot of work with trauma as well. So I'm the kind of one-stop shop, mind and body.
Absolutely.
But we're talking tonight about
holistic approach, sort of. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I get that. It's lovely. So I guess the question that everyone wants to ask is, what is the Bowen Technique? What is it? What's it all about, Sue?
Well, it was created by a man called Tom Bowen in Australia, and his wife had very severe asthma. And he didn't know what to do to help her. And he just started researching and working, and he found he could help her with her asthma attacks. And then people around him were working, asked him to help with this, that, and the other. And he just developed this process that he started using. And then there were people that wanted to know what it was and document it. And he wasn't really that interested, but they followed him around with notebooks and cameras and what he did.
Oh wow.
And then that was really how Bowen got out into the world, because there were a number of people. Ozzy Stritch was one of the key players in that, and he and his wife Elaine run the Bowen Association in this country, in the world, in Australia. They're Australians and they run it from there, but the Bowen Association that I trained with and belonged to, they're the head of that.
Wow.
Well, they're extraordinary. I was lucky enough to do one course with them the last time they were in the UK, and oh my goodness,
gosh,
just amazing.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So
watching the masters at work.
Absolutely. So when you got into Bowen, created the technique, if you like. Was he in a similar type of work anyway? Was he working with the body anyway, and he just sort of naturally?
No. He was working. I don't know. I'm not sure. I should know where he was working, but he wasn't. That wasn't his. That wasn't initially his work. He wasn't a trained osteopath or a trained anything.
Wow.
It just came about
Even
because he so desperately wanted to help his wife.
It's even more incredible, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is. Yeah.
I do believe these things do come to certain people, for a reason to, to share with the world.
Yeah.
Especially if it has, lots and lots of benefits for people.
But it was Aussie Strips really got it out and went round to lots of sort of conferences and medical conferences, and would get up on the stage and say, anybody got a shoulder problem, because the Bowen shoulder thing for 9 out, not for really complex shoulder problems, but most problems we've got shoulder pain. You do the Bowen shoulder the moves, and suddenly almost somebody's arm's stuck there and it goes up there, and
you can't beat the demonstration.
It's a really good party piece.
So, I can imagine everyone was like, wow, and that's a great way to get these things out there,
isn't it? That's how you get it out there, yes.
Absolutely. God.
Yeah.
So what's some of the benefits of Bowen, and what sort of things can you help people with?
Well, the majority of musculoskeletal pain and problems, sciatica, back pain, knee pain, neck pain, elbow pain. There's even a Bowen procedure for cold feet.
For which? Cold feet?
For cold feet,
really?
Yes. Yeah, and I had a chap a long time ago now. He was a gardener, and he just told me he always had cold feet. And I said to him, I'm sure in my notes, somewhere in my manuals, there's a procedure. And he said, well, let's try it. So we did. And I saw him next week, and he said he'd had warm feet for a week.
Really?
And it's like, I was surprised at that.
But you were amazed as well.
Yeah, I was. I have to admit, because it was only sort of dimly in the back of my mind that there was one, because it's not the sort of thing that you do. It doesn't turn up every day. There are things, funnily enough, things come in waves. You have a week of knees and a week of necks, and then a fortnight of sciatica, and then a week of elbows, and it just predominantly.
I read somewhere, Sue, that someone used it to sort of help with asthma.
Oh, it can help with asthma. There is a Bowen move that can help with an asthma attack, and actually, I got my first opportunity the other day to use it for someone with hiccups.
Really?
Yeah, this lovely lady got hiccups when she was on the table, and I said, I think I might be able to help you with that. Can I just? And she said yes, and just went like that, and her hiccup stops. And it was,
really?
That's brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah, that's fun. So
it research and hiccups. You've been able to try out.
It resets the diaphragm, so that's why it would essentially help with asthma. There are different types of asthma, so I think it's a bit. But you could help somebody with asthma in as much as you can help, you can help the diaphragm to work better and all these muscles to work better. The same with after any respiratory illness. It's a really good thing to get that all working well.
It also affects the lymphatic system as well, doesn't it? It helps with the flow, doesn't it?
Well, there's a whole lymphatic Bowen thing, which a whole body treatment you can do, or bits of it, which was developed by some people who did some research. They actually got volunteers, brave volunteers, who were injected with a dye into the lymphatic system, and they looked at, because we were always told that the pelvic procedure that moves Bowen, the knee procedure that moves lymph, it moves lymph, and they started to wonder how true or not that was. So they started this thing, and they would be watching on the screens, and somebody would do a procedure, and somebody else would be watching the screen and go, well, that didn't really do anything. Oh yeah, that did a lot. And so then they started to find out what did and what didn't make it move. And so there's a whole set of Bowen-like thing. It's a whole procedure of Bowen-like moves that you do over the body that really do move the lymph.
Wow.
Obviously I've trained in that as well, and it's such an amazing procedure.
Are they still discovering new things within Bowen at the moment?
Certainly. I mean, there's the work on the lymphatic system is still ongoing. One of the big things that I'm just doing an extended course on it again next week, which I did the sort of first course, is to work with the vagus nerve.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And how you can really affect the vagus nerve by working around, but mostly around that. Well, I think it's more now. Initially it was all around here, but I think I think the course I'm about to do might. I don't know what I'm about to do because I haven't done it, but I think it's more.
And I actually, I've had a couple of sessions with you myself, haven't I? And
Yes.
I found it very interesting actually. The movements are incredibly subtle. Can you sort of talk about that a little bit? Because I think when people go for sort of, like with I mean, traditionally it's massage or deep muscle massage, and there's a lot more pressure going on. But I obviously was aware that it was very, very subtle. So
Bowen moves are very light. I mean, you literally sort of find the edge of a muscle, challenge it, and then just roll gently over it. That's essentially what a Bowen move is, and it's where you do them in the order and the sequence that makes the difference. But it is a light touch, but it has a very, as you've experienced, a very profound effect. And interestingly, in the sort of Ayurvedic tradition, they talk about the three. Well, it's the three energies. It can apply to food and all sorts of things. But in touch, they talk about somatic touch, that deep sports massage, and the rajasic would be like shaking someone to wake them up. That kind of just jiggling. And the sattvic touch is this soft touch. And in the West, we tend to think that the stronger the touch, the more effect. But in the East, they know that the softer the touch, the more effect. And Bowen moves much more towards that sattvic end of how we.
I can imagine that actually. I mean, I was a little bit surprised myself because obviously in the past I've had lots of deep muscle massages, and I was like, wow, this is like so different. It's amazing. And when you're doing the procedure, you leave the room for a couple of minutes.
Yes.
I know it's to let the body settle. You told me that. But is there a reason why you actually leave the room? Is there a specific reason for that? Do you want to tell us?
Well, there is, because we're all in a state of not hyper aware, but we're all aware, and we've all got that little reptile part of our mind that's constantly hunting around and looking. And so if I stay in the room, there's always a little bit of you or whoever's on the couch, sort of, where is she? What's she doing now?
Right.
If I go out of the room, you hear me go out, and then the brain, the mind relaxes, then the body can do its own stuff even better, and that's what it's doing. I mean, I give it information and suggestions, and it's the body that does it, that corrects itself or realigns itself. And then when I open the door and come back in, then that little reptile bit of the brain goes, oh yeah, she's back now. But I come straight on and put a hand on the body again, and everybody, it's kind of clearer.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, thanks for that, Sue. Is there also a reason, because when you manipulate the muscle subtly, mostly anyway, because there are some muscles where you've got to go in a bit because they're what is it, around the groin area, that muscle you were doing with me.
Yeah, it's a big muscle. It's not that you just hold it, you challenge it for longer rather than do a harder move. It's just a longer challenge.
Yeah. So when you do a movement to the muscle, the patient has to do it. You do it on the out breath of the patient.
On the out breath, yes.
Is there what's behind that?
Because when we breathe, in, we stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, which is our active nervous system, if you like, the one that will eventually take you into fright and flight if it's stimulated enough. But we need enough of that functioning to keep us going in the day. Of course. And when we breathe out, we go back into the parasympathetic, the rest, and the digest. It's subtle, but with the breath. So if I work at the end of an out breath, the body's more relaxed and the muscles let go, and then I make the move. And then as you start to breathe in again, they'll tighten slightly. It is subtle. But that change between the in breath and the out breath just makes a difference to how the body responds.
I mean, it was again, all these little things. They're going to be interesting for people, especially when they go and have a treatment, if they choose to have a treatment, because that's the idea of this channel really, is to have people on, So it gives people an informed choice, gives them an idea, I'd like to try that. So it gives them an idea of what to expect as well. So that, it's good in that respect. I also heard, and I'm I'm going all different angles here, but I obviously did a bit of research, and bedwetting
can be used to help with bedwetting. I haven't personally done it, but for children and bedwetting, yes.
Wow.
It can be quite effective.
And any idea? I know you've not actually treated anyone for that, but have you got any idea how that would sort of help it, or what process goes on, or whatever?
Well, thinking of where you would work again, you're helping the nervous system to reset around that area. Right. I would guess that would help
Okay.
So the signals are working better.
Okay, so we're probably in a case of bedwetting, the nervous system sort of out of sync for some reason. It's only
possibly. I mean, we're speculating a bit here, so I wouldn't.
We are a little bit.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, but I just know a lot of success with it,
But I do know that a lot of Bowen practitioners, anecdotally, is reported to be very good for bedwetting. Yes.
Right. Wow. And as well as the physical aspects of the body, it also can have profound changes on the emotional aspect of the person.
Well, we hold stuff in our bodies, don't we? We hold emotions in our bodies, and we hold trauma in our bodies. And so when you start working on a body, things can, especially scars. I work on scars as well.
Wow.
And the emotion that can be held in a scar.
Wow.
When you touch a scar that somebody's had, and they don't they haven't thought anything of it, but it'll bring up, and it can at the time, or maybe the next day, or the day after that, it'll suddenly bring up emotion about it.
Wow, that's incredible. It really is.
Yeah, because scars are they're with whatever intention they're done with, and however much we needed something at the time, it's still a violation of the system. You've broken into an integral system.
Can we talk a little bit more about scarring? Because there's probably a lot of people out there that have scars. Maybe
Well, scarring can affect the body massively. So, for instance, a cesarean scar. So cesarean, particularly because it goes through you're going through the skin, the fat, the muscles, the skin, the skin, the fascia. We haven't talked about fascia yet. Fat, and then through the uterus wall, and so it's a very deep scar.
Right.
Of going into the body. And I saw an incredible video that was taken of some kind of spectral, I don't know what it was, device that was looking at what would it be? What do you do? Names, the word's gone when you scan for babies.
Ultrasound now.
Ultrasound, that's it.
Hey, oh my God, I got it.
Yeah, brilliant. A very clever ultrasound system that was looking sideways into a woman's belly where she had a cesarean. And this is grossly exaggerated because I can't, it's obviously very, very small. But the scar, if this was the top of her tummy here, the scar kind of looked like that.
Oh, wow.
And as the practitioner was doing the scar work, you actually saw the wound come together on the screen.
Wow.
Deep in the body.
Wow.
And then you could see little wiggly things. And so, this was on a webinar, and eventually, 2 or 3 voices at the same time. What are the wiggly things? And it's the blood vessels. It's the capillaries repopulating the area.
That's incredible. Now that is
amazing. Yeah.
Wow. And I guess it's quite rewarding to work in that area as well.
Well, the thing is, with particularly, any scar affects the body, but a lot of women who've had cesarean sections have back pain, and they go to all sorts of practitioners, and it never gets better because it's the scar. And when you work on the scar, the back pain miraculously gets better. But it's not just, it's all scars. I'm working at the moment on ladies who had double mastectomy. And she felt like she had a tight band around her chest, and that sensation's already gone. So that's an amazing.
It makes sense. It makes sense, because like you said, the body's been traumatized.
But actually, the scar tissue pulls the fascia, so that's why it causes pain in other parts of the body.
Right. Okay.
So it's not just where the scar is; it affects other parts of the body. So I had a lady who'd had a partial mastectomy and radiotherapy. So we worked around this kind of where the tissue, where she'd had the radiotherapy, softened that amazingly, but also worked on the scarring under her arm. And again, she had her arm was, I think it's on my website, came up to about there, and it went up there at the end. So then she could put her coat on. You know, the difference it makes to somebody's life.
You know,
in practical terms, is huge.
Absolutely. You know, it must be incredible for the people. All of a sudden, we've got this extra movement that they haven't had for years.
They didn't know and didn't even, and people live with it and adapt.
They live with it. This is the thing.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
A lot of things people live with these things.
But people don't know. You know, nobody really. Scar work's even less well known than Bowen. You know, it's less out in the public domain or less thought about.
And I'm glad we're talking about it here because again, it's important, and people watching this, they're going to be enlightened with it. We have got a little message here from Indra Jones. Do you know Indra Jones?
Yeah, I know Indra. Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to this interview. Indra, if you've got any questions you want to ask, or anyone that's watching at the moment, I can see we've got a few people watching. If you want to ask Sue a question, please feel free, because it's always great to get questions off the viewers. Absolutely. So earlier on, you said we haven't touched on fascia. So do you want to?
No.
Fascia.
Do I want? Yeah. Well, fascia.
Yeah, fascia. do you want to touch on that? Or?
Yeah, I think it's very important. Interestingly, not so long ago, when the medical students dissect a body as part of their learning, they used to skin the fascia off and drop it in the bin.
Right.
Now it's the in thing, and there are conferences on it. You know, there are
really.
Yeah. Oh, there are conferences and symposium on the fascia, because suddenly we've woken up and realised what an amazing thing it is, and it's actually I don't even know how to describe it. It's a complete layer under your skin that covers your whole body, and on your bottom it's about 4 centimeters thick.
Wow.
So when next time she says, "Does my bum look big in this?" you can say, "Yes, you've got a beautiful layer of fascia there."
That's one way. That's one way of looking at it.
One way of answering that one, isn't it? We're still finding out about it. But it's we know it needs a lot of water to function.
Okay.
It has to be well hydrated, and we know that it can dry out, and we know that a Bowen. We don't know that nobody's done the research to say it's a specific Bowen move, but there's been research looking at what kind of a move, what kind of a touch would help it to free up and hydrate. And when somebody describes what that is, they are describing what can be a Bowen move. It might be other touch, but it would certainly, a Bowen move would qualify as that kind of move.
Wow.
So we've had that kind of indirect evidence that Bowen moves do this
with the fascia.
It's a completely, but it's also, it goes further than that. It goes around every a muscle's made up of a lot of fibres. Well, perhaps you didn't know. It goes around the outside of the muscle, but it goes around every fibre. It goes around every organ in your body.
It go around the organs.
Yes, it does. And if you didn't have the fascia there, all your organs would stick together.
Wow.
You know, and you'd bend over and something would go where two organs were stuck together. It's the fascia that allows them to slide past each other or slide a bit as you. So yeah, it's a hugely important, but also people are beginning to think it's a. I don't want to use the word nervous system, but there's a communication system within it, and it may people are sort of speculating, and this is speculative, that maybe what the Eastern Chinese medicine has always talked about as meridians. Maybe the meridians are actually within the fascia.
Oh wow!
Maybe. It's being looked into. There's a lot of research going on into the fascia and how it works. but I think that's one of the reasons why Bowen moves. With Bowen in particular, as far as I know, you get effects on. You do a move on one part of the body, and it's felt dramatically in another part of the body, or affects another part of the body.
Wow!
so much. And there was a famous case study in one of the Bowen email, things that come out every so often, about a practitioner was working with a woman who came in with this really bad pelvis, and she listed what she'd done, and everybody like, yeah, of course, yeah, you do that, you do that, you do that, and it was like, really, do that, nothing, until she did to this woman's toes, and she touched her little toe, and her whole pelvis went boom, and reset.
Wow, that is madness.
So, and that's not where you first. That's not what I or anybody else would first think to do, is to go look at someone's little toe because they've got a bad pelvis. And but she'd exhausted everything else.
Wow.
She was desperate. She had to help. She knew that there was something. That's
good for her. Good for her for pursuing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Persistence.
Yeah, sometimes it definitely pays. And we got a question actually from Indra, and
okay,
I'll be able to put it on here actually, so you can read it. There you go.
Okay. How many sessions did 8 heal scars? I want to process something. Okay. The received wisdom about scar work is that 5's a good number. I think I've only done 5 once on anybody, usually 2 or 3, sometimes only 1. Sometimes people are so pleased after 1 session that they never come back.
Wow.
But if I get the opportunity, I'd certainly like to do a second, because there's room for improvement. And 5 is considered a good number to do. When I did the training, that was the optimum number. But I don't, as I said, I've very rarely done 5, because you get such a big effect in the first 1 or 2 that people don't want to come back for anymore. They don't need to come back for anymore. They're happy.
Wow.
But sometimes I've been lucky enough that somebody's come as a regular client, and I've been able to work, do another session on the scar, and then I start to see more change.
But what sort of change do people see when you do work on the scars, Sue? I mean,
well, that's interesting, isn't it? You can see a difference. Sometimes you see a difference. The color might change, or it might even look a bit shorter, or a bit neater. And sometimes a raised scar will flatten out a bit. But we're not. But mostly it's a lot of it is the feeling, how they feel. Suddenly they feel better. They can move better. They get a better range of movement. They suddenly realise that they've been feeling something they hadn't noticed, and it's gone, and they didn't realise how bad it was. Like having a toothache, and you kind of get used to it, and then suddenly your dentist fills your tooth or takes it out or whatever it is, and you suddenly think, God, that's been really bad for ages. Perhaps that's a bad example, but no,
it's a great example actually, because
so sometimes people with you work on a scar, and suddenly oh my God, that's been pulling all these years, and I hadn't really thought about it, but now it's not. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
you get that reaction as well.
It pulls on everything, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I had one lady who'd had she'd had an appendix out, and then it had gone wrong, and so she had an emergency surgery. So she's got quite a lot of abdominal scarring. And what surprised me and her was she'd been coming to me for some time anyway, and every winter she would get chesty coughs, and I'd always do all the respiratory work. But when I worked on the scar, suddenly her diaphragm started working better, and I don't think she's had a chesty cough since.
Wow.
And that did surprise me. I love the fact that for her, I've been doing this some time, and I these wonderful surprises, and lovely, and it's exciting. It's always exciting when somebody walks in. I get that excitement about what's coming.
What's going to happen?
What their history? I'm interested. I want to know, and what can I do, and what ties into what, and what direction is it traveling, up the body, down the body? Is it where it is? Because sometimes the pain that they're presenting with the cause is not where the pain is manifesting.
Yes, it's quite common, that, isn't it? It's
yes.
I wanted to I don't know if it's the time to talk about it, but I wanted to touch on the polyvagal.
We touched on it. We started with the breathing, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to?
Well, polyvagal theory was created by a man called Stephen Porges, and it's an excellent theory, and I think he's expanded our previous understanding of the nervous system, which was the received wisdom for years have been that, and it's still true, that we have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, and our sympathetic nervous system is we want that firing when we wake up in the morning, and we want our parasympathetic system working at night when we go to sleep, because that's when the body repairs and restores. So, but during the day, ideally, you hover about a sort of midline, and you get a little bit stressed, and you go into sympathetic, and then you might have your lunch and relax a bit, and you go into a bit of parasympathetic, and but if people are really, really stressed, they go massively into sympathetic, and if they have a huge shock, they go into fight and flight, sympathetic, really high sympathetic. But also, but that was the kind of classic theory. But then,
it's took off, hasn't it, Sue? It's took off because I mean, I got interested in it because I like anything to do with the nervous system, to be honest, the neuroscience and stuff like that. I'm a bit of a nerd, to be honest.
But then Dr. Porras came along and started looking at particularly at the vagus nerve, and he realised that it's called the vagus nerve because it's vagrant and it wanders all over the body. It's the longest nerve. Yeah. It also has the interesting structure in that it's myelinated in the top half of the body and unmyelinated in the bottom of the.
What do you mean by that word?
Well, the nerves, primitive nerves, as creatures were evolving, the nerves were unmyelinated, and once we got to up into the higher vertebrates, we started to get myelinated nerves, and the signals travel faster through myelinated nerves. And slower through the unmyelinated. Okay. But this vagus nerve has both, and it's unusual. Usually a nerve is myelinated or unmyelinated, and this one is it's got two branches. One is myelinated and one is not. Everything down as far as the diaphragm is myelinated. When it goes below and into the digestive system, it's not. But the new bit that he kind of really brought in, which we'd never thought about before, we'd thought of everybody being, stressed or stressed or resting. He brought in this new part to do with the ventral vagal system, which also relates to some other nerves as well. But it's all about our being in a good state, not just functional and awake and alive, but actually a good state.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that would be like when somebody's in the flow, in the zone, when they're really calm, when they're really relaxed, when they're really happy, when they're socially engaged. That's
like
when we're
myself too, all the time.
That's it, all the time. Yeah, that's it. So yes, you spend your time in ventral vagal, and that's great. And so some people talk about a ladder. You can climb a ladder, and you're in the bottom state of that is the collapsed state. The extreme of it is the collapsed state when you've gone to bed for 4 days and done nothing and binged on Netflix. Yeah, that's the kind of bottom. The top is when you're having the time of your life without drinking drugs, and you're really happy and you're with your mates.
Yeah.
And so. And most of us are somewhere in the middle.
In the middle. Yeah. I mean, I have researched it, not as much as I'd like to, because I'm researching so many different things that I need to be getting on with, and those sort of things take a back seat because it's more of an interest. But there are lots of techniques, isn't there?
There are a lot of things you can do to help your vagal system,
the nervous system, or the vagal system.
Yeah, there is, and that's what the course I'm about to do, and I've already done some of it, is how you can work as a Bowen practitioner with the vagal system. But there are things we can do to help regulate our vagal system. And one of the things, again, coming back to that breath, if we consciously make our out breath longer than our in breath, right, we take ourselves more into a relaxed state. Good,
absolutely makes sense. It really does.
And so if you breathe in it depends how. Someone who does yoga will be able to do really long in and out breaths. Someone who's got, asthma or COPD, they would have to do this very carefully. But so you could start on breathe in for 2 and out for 4, perhaps, or you might even do 1 and 3 if you're really having trouble breathing. If you've been doing a lot of yoga, you might breathe in for 5 and out for 10.
Yeah,
but it's making your out breath longer than your in.
It is, and there's quite a few breathing exercises on YouTube that because I like breathing. I think that's really important. Isn't it?
Well, it's quite important, isn't it?
What do we do without it? Oh my God!
Yes, it's definitely a useful thing.
There's there's a lot of YouTube videos out there doing breathing techniques with an emphasis on the out breath being a bit longer than the in breath. And the other thing, I read a book by James Nestor called Breath. I don't know if you
I haven't read it yet.
Amazing book.
But he talks about nose
nasal
breathing,
yeah.
breathing really important.
I think we spoke about this, didn't we? And
yes.
He did a study on it, and he investigated the whole thing, you know, with other people, and discovered that mouth breathing can adversely affect the jaw, you know, your teeth. And isn't that good for your body, apparently, you know? So anyone that's watching, you got to start nasal breathing.
Well, I was watching, I saw a thing on Instagram, I think, with one of my teachers who's doing all this vagal stuff. You're talking about taping your mouth shut at night.
That's a lot of people do that. It's surprising.
So you have to breathe through your nose.
Yeah. I mean, you imagine it, 8 hours of nasal breathing or 6 hours or wherever you sleep, it would make a bit of a difference. It seems a bit extreme to me to be taping the mouth, but, you know, people do it.
People do, yes. And I think it is... Well,
it's probably
I need to read the book, but it does seem to be the received wisdom at the moment, the nasal breathing. And the other received wisdom, which I think is also is a factor that we do know, where your tongue rests in your mouth affects everything. And it affects your vagal system, but it affects your posture, it affects everything.
Oh my gosh.
So ideally your tongue should be on the roof of your mouth, just behind your teeth. So it should rest on the roof of your mouth, just behind your teeth.
You can downer it.
Oh, well, you see, your vagal state isn't that good then. Because if you've got a really good vagal state, that's where your tongue rests.
To be honest, I'm not aware. I don't think a lot of people are aware of where their tongue is, because it's an automatic response, isn't it?
If you say la, say the word la.
Well, that's a Liverpool thing, isn't it? La.
Yeah, go la. Where feel where your tongue is when you go la.
La, yeah.
So that's ideally when you're resting, your tongue should be around there somewhere.
Oh, well, that's good then. That's it.
And when the better your vagal state, the better it's, the more likely it is to be up there, or the more you keep it up there, the better your vagal state. It goes both ways.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I'm fascinated with it. I think there's a lot in it, and I think any technique that, you know, balances out the nervous system is a good thing, and most of them are quite easy to do. It's not like, you know,
calming, resetting and helping your nervous system to calm down is not rocket science. It's quite it really is. There are quite a few things, but the breath is one of the key ones.
Yeah. Well, the Eastern philosophies are, you know, big on the breath, aren't they? It's breathing's really important, and unfortunately, you know, whether it's been educated out of us at some point, I don't know, but people just breathe. You know, most people, they're not aware of how they're breathing, and they don't realize the importance of it.
No, I never gave it a thought until years ago when my oldest son wanted to learn to meditate. We went along to a Buddhist meditation thing. Suddenly we were focusing on our breath, and I'd never given it a...
Yeah. Well, I don't know about you, Sue, but I also get out the habit of doing these things as well. And it's like, you know, I think a lot of people do that. You know, they'll do a technique for a while and then they don't do it for a little while, or they might do it a little bit, and it eventually fizzles out. And it's a matter of, you know, making these things a part of your life, really. To really see the benefits, I think.
Yes.
We've got another question, I believe, Sue. Let's have a look. We're here getting back to the Bowen. Here we go.
Children and babies, yes, it can. Definitely. Children, well, we talked about bedwetting, but it can help calm them down, really. And babies, yes, colic or feeding problems. And the babies that will only feed one side and not the other. We can sort that out. And colicky stuff, we can sort that out. So it's just amazing. And the youngest baby I ever worked on was actually my own grandson.
Wow.
3 weeks old.
Wow.
And it was extraordinary. I just did these little moves on him, and he was on his dad's lap.
Yeah.
And it was like he just kind of opened out, and you could see his eyes going from side to side. What's happening?
Really?
It was like he unravelled. It was just in a beautiful way. And there was this moment of complete silence in the room while this happened, and then he was. Oh, it was just beautiful to see, and it was almost like I suddenly realised I got the feeling that, you know, he like all babies had been so curled up in the womb, they come out, and then you just give the whole body permission to for the fascia to all kind of relax, and the whole body relaxes. So it was extraordinary. So you know, Bowen, I've had babies in with, you know, colic, and they've gone out happy, and it's lovely. It's just magic. I don't charge for babies under 2.
Oh,
It's just a can't really.
Anybody
they're in and out. They're in and out. They're in and out.
Fewer people, Sue, with babies.
Well, they're in and out. They're in and out quite quickly. Except that I like to keep them a bit longer because I enjoy being with them. But yes, it's
and again, because the technique's so subtle, you know.
It's so gentle that it doesn't hurt, you know, it doesn't hurt babies, and it's so gentle. It doesn't upset them. It just calms them down. They just like it.
Well, Ruth McGregor, thank you so much for your question, and also thank you, Indra, for your question. And if anybody else has got any questions they want to ask, fire away. And while I'm saying this sort of stuff, I'd also like to say, anyone that's watching this live now and you're enjoying the chat, enjoying all the information you're getting, and people that are watching the recording, it'd be fantastic if you could like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're not watching on YouTube, you might be watching on Facebook. We have a Free the Mind UK YouTube channel, and it'd be great just to get that bit of support, because the more people that follow it or subscribe, the more people we can reach. Absolutely, that's my bit done too.
Okay, good.
So, is there anything else because I want to talk about your other stuff you do as well, you know, because you do some therapy work with, you know, emotional work and stuff. Yes. But is there anything else that you think would be useful for people to know about Bowen that you haven't really covered so far? I'll tell you, I've got a question. What can people expect when they've had a Bowen session, you know?
Oh, that's an interesting question. People respond differently, and I have to be sensitive and try and work out to some degree how people are going to respond, because you can overcook some people.
Of course.
I could overcook some people if I'm not careful. Some people can take any amount of Bowen and they go out on cloud 9 and they're happy. The other extreme, I had a woman that I did 4 moves on, and I wish I'd only done 2.
Wow.
Honestly.
What sort of response did you get then?
Well, she went home and she was really quite ill, and she had the runs and had the flu, but I did know, because I only did 4 moves. And I would normally do what, 20, 30?
Oh, well, there you go. So already had that.
I really knew that she couldn't take it. I really knew I had to go so softly, so gently, but actually I almost wished I'd done less.
Yeah.
And you can't get much less than 4.
No. Well, there wouldn't have been a lot you could have done. And how did she get on after that, though? Was she all right after that?
Well, she came back once after that, and then she didn't come back again because something happened in her, you know, personal life, and she didn't get back again. So I don't know what happened to her in the end, but I did know that I couldn't.
Because as far as I'm concerned, if I go and see someone and that happened to me, then that's telling me that something's happening. You know, it's my body purging.
Yeah, certainly something is happening, but people don't usually have an extreme reaction like that. They can. I have, as I said, people with scars sometimes have found themselves tearful the next day, or a bit tearful, or felt a bit the next day because something's come up. People can be tired. They certainly need to drink water. I don't know if I use the word need, but when you had a Bowen session, you need to drink water, because we've just got the fascia moving, and it needs water. It needs water to flow and to move, and to allow that movement that makes everything. Because when it sticks, and that causes pain and discomfort.
Right.
So if you had a Bowen session, drinking water after is pretty essential. But you can. Some people get tired for a bit. For the rest, you know,
I was quite relaxed
they might
after
get to bed early, and some people don't really. As I said, some people walk out happy, you know, really happy and energized. So
Well, one of the things I was pleasantly surprised with was your professionalism, Sue. When I had my session with you, you sort of checked out my body with your laser, which I found.
Oh, my builder's laser, yes.
Builder's laser,
my builder's laser plumb line.
But you know, you can't get any straighter than one of them.
No, you can't. No. Absolutely. But I use that because I can see when I set the plumb line up and I run it down your back. I can see, depending on where the laser is on the back, I can see where so somebody comes in, they've got a low back problem, and I do that with the laser. I can see whether there's something going on below the back that we need to look at. So we might look at hamstrings and knees, or is there something above? So I might look at neck.
I see.
So it's really helpful it's helped me to really see what's contributing to the presenting problem.
And it's not a common thing Bowen people use. It's something you just had an idea about, was it?
No. I learned it on a course of assessment. Assessment Bowen, yes. Yeah.
There you go.
Yes.
Now I haven't been paranoid, but when I spoke to you last time and you watched one of the other talks I did with somebody, my head was tilted to one side. I don't know what it's been like tonight.
No, it's not tonight though.
It's all right tonight.
Yeah.
Hey.
So I'm pleased. So I've been watching. It's like, something's changed. Whatever we did last time. Has already done something.
And you know what? I noticed because one of the things Sue noticed about me was my hands was in front of my body too far, and they have come in a bit actually.
Yes, well, that's always a sign. Usually a sign of if somebody's standing. My dad always used to say, "Stand to attention, thumbs in line with the seam of your trousers."
Yes.
Well, if your thumbs are in front of you, the seam of your trousers, and they are even in front of your body. When you're just standing relaxed, it's an indication that your psoas muscle is tight.
Yeah.
And your psoas muscle is the one that enables you to lift your leg.
Yeah.
So it's often called the muscle of the soul, actually. It carries so much, and it carries a lot of trauma in it often as well. But people, that's the emotional level. But on the practical level, I mean, people who drive for a job and they're sitting all day or at a desk all day, it tightens up.
And sitting is one of the worst things you can do for the body, isn't it? Yes. It compresses all the organs, and it's supposed to knock years off your life. I mean,
it's not good for us, but we all do it all the time. Yes.
Yeah, we do, especially driving. Sometimes I.
But yes, so that can tighten your psoas up, and so then when you stand up, you can just see that the hands are slightly further forward than my dad's ideal of the thumbs in line with the seam of your trousers.
Now. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, so yes, that's another thing I look for and look at when I assess people.
But like I say, I was pleasantly surprised. You're very professional in the way you do everything, and it's definitely worth checking out Sue for a one-on-one session. And it's like a lot of therapies you can do online, but you can't do that with Bowen, can you?
Don't do that one online. No, we can.
You
do IMT online, and I do my other work. Do it online, but
and that's the next thing I want to go on to, Sue, because as well as doing the Bowen, you also use several different techniques. I think you use blast, don't you?
Which is similar to IMT. It's the eye movement.
Yeah, it is,
which all came from EDMR, which all came from NLP. Which
Yes, absolutely.
So there's another one. There's another one as well at the moment that's popped up. Another eye movement thing that people are learning.
Yeah, I've come across. It might be the same.
Can't remember what it is.
I can't remember what it's called now. But
no, neither can I. But they're popping up all over the place now.
Yeah.
But yes, it's the basic eye movement.
Yes, indeed. And
processing trauma.
I use a similar technique myself with using the eyes, and it's incredible. Like
it is, isn't it? It's remarkable how quickly people shift.
Yeah, rapid.
And things that are really bothering them, you suddenly go, and how do you feel about it now? And they go, whoa.
I can't even access it.
It's like it's distant. It's gone. It's like.
I love using it.
So do I. It's just it's so magic, isn't it?
It is. but like everybody, we have like a little bag of tools, because not all techniques work with everybody. I've used my technique on some people and nothing's happened, and I'm like, you holding the memory or the emotion while I'm doing it, and they're like, yeah, but it's like, oh, okay. You know, if there was a technique that worked for everyone, it'd be you know, yeah, everyone would be using it.
Well, I think one day it'll be that we'll actually really know how to work with and regulate our vagal system. And when we know how to do that, so we can do it reliably, consistently, we won't need to do anything else.
Makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
So
but we haven't got there yet. But I wonder if that's where it will eventually be.
Yeah.
And all our other things will fall away. But until it does, all our other things are very useful.
So the reason I went on to the therapy side of things that you do, obviously that's what you do, and you know, people can come to see you one-to-one with that as well, I guess. But
yeah, they can do all work on Zoom
remotely. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I use that, and I use tapping. I've done a lot of training around trauma, and I'm also trained in something called meta health or meta consciousness, where we look at the mind-body connection, and when you can see what's going on.
Yes.
So that's always interesting when people come in with their body stuff. It's interesting to see.
Isn't that the stuff?
I've always got a good idea what's going on in their life.
Yeah. I always think of Penny Kroll when you talk about that.
I trained with Penny. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to get her on one day.
That would be good.
I was supposed to get back to her. She might watch. She might be watching. Probably not, but I will be giving her a shout.
Yeah. I'm sure she'd love to talk about meta consciousness and
I'd love to hear about it. And I'm sure everybody else would as well, because
she's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely. So
I've got a way to go to catch up with her, but I'm learning all the time. Do you find that you spend once you're in this, that you spend your whole life learning?
You do, and you know what? That's what I love about it, because I like to, you know, I haven't got a TV. I don't watch telly all the time, and I just like to expand my brain. I think it fascinates me, you know. And like you said, it's like once you get into this, you're in that constant learning process.
Well, there's always something else that you can, you know. I've got a wonderful 3D anatomy app on my iPad.
Oh wow!
And so sometimes I'll just pull it up and look at a muscle group.
Yeah.
You know, just to get it deeper in my head and how it works and where everything joins up, and because it's just.
I don't know about.
It's just that constant kind of getting things embedded in your brain and learning more, and then embedding that. And
I have to do it quite a lot. I don't know if my brain's getting older, Sue, but I don't even know if I notice a difference. But I have to spend a bit of time on something to really absorb it nowadays.
Well, I think it's more that we've lived so long that our brains are pretty full.
Yeah, I like that idea.
So putting something new in, then we've got something else has to shift out a bit, and our brains are busy trying to work out which bit to shift out. That's why it takes us longer. That's I like that theory. I'm going to stay with it.
Oh, I love it. I've got a friend of mine, actually. I don't know if you know her yet. I don't know if you do. Her name's Janet Withell.
No, didn't come across her. No.
Anyway, she's a big ambassador of the Bowen Technique. And
right.
I'm not sure if she's watching. If you're watching, Janet, hello! And maybe give us a message saying you're watching. You'll probably watch the recorded version anyway. We used to do a lot of business networking together years ago.
Right, okay.
Which is another...
She's a Bowen therapist, is she? Obviously.
She's not. She's obviously, I don't know the backdrop to the story, but why she's a big ambassador for it. Obviously, she's probably had it.
Yeah, well, I guess so, yes.
I know someone who's had it, and it's had profound effects, you know. It's like that with me with EFT, to be honest. I used EFT, and it had profound effects.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
And it's shaped my life for the last 15, 20 years, and it's fast-tracked my my sort of, I don't know how to say it. Like, you know, we can spend a month going through something, or you can spend 5 minutes going through
Tap on it and sort
tap
it
it
out.
away.
Yeah.
Funny enough, so a friend of mine said, "But Dave, maybe you're meant to have it for a month." And I said, "Well, if I was, I'd do it. I would, but obviously I'm not. So I'm going to tap it away. What's the point? Life's too short."
Yeah.
But it is true. People can learn things from struggles, you know, and pain, and you know, it's surprising how many people change in incredible ways when faced with traumatic things in their life.
Well, I mean, I do what I do because I don't want other people to experience what I've experienced. Yeah, and I had, I had so much trauma when I was young with all the accidents and the surgeries, and so much pain because of it all. It's not surprising I've ended up doing body work and trauma work.
No. Do you know what? So I've never broken a bone in my life. It's like it's crazy. And once I threw myself out of a first floor bedroom window once as well. I was lucky; my head didn't hit the concrete. It was in a dream. No, I actually sleepwalked and jumped out the window.
Gosh,
I know. They did
You're incredibly lucky not to break anything.
But I never bothered. That was like back in late 70s. You don't want to go see a psychiatrist. You end up like someone you don't want to be or whatever. But anyway, that was quite interesting. But that was my lucky day. That was, I think.
We were very lucky not to.
They say when you dream and you falling, there's that saying that you die. But I remember waking up and seeing a human hole in a window. I was like, oh my God, I don't believe it. I just jumped out the bloody window. I remembered the dream and everything, It's like,
wow.
I'm digressing a bit here, aren't I? I can do that. So like for people that want to get hold of you for obviously for the Bowen
website's there.
Got the web address there. If you go on there,
and everything I do is on there. I mean, obviously all the Bowen stuff's on there, but everything else I do is on there.
Absolutely. So if you've got any emotional or traumatic issues, they can also contact you through that website.
Through the website, yes, indeed.
Have a chat with you and hopefully book you in.
Yes, indeed.
I highly recommend Sue, everybody. She's amazing.
Bowen, usually we book people in because I need to see a body, but for the emotional work, I always have a chat first to see, because you need to find out whether you're a good fit with somebody. Not every therapist is right for every client. It's
very true.
And there's always it's possibly that my voice might remind somebody of their
trigger them,
could be a trigger, or the way I speak, or just the way I say something might not fit with their how they are, and I mean it's as well to find that out in a chat before you committed on a journey. And I don't want to take somebody's money and then they say, well, of course, I knew, I can't. Your voice is triggering me. Well, we find that out early on. Before anybody does anything. So
it's amazing. It's amazing what can trigger the amygdala, whatever. Someone could have been horrible to you 20 years ago, and you've got whoever you're talking to has got a similar nose, and that's enough.
Yes, I know. I never wear scent when I'm working.
Oh, really?
Because it could be somebody's sister, somebody's ex-wife. Heaven forbid, you really don't want that trigger, or somebody's mum. Yeah. So I never wear scent when I'm working. No, because I think it's because our sense of smell is one of the biggest triggers. One of the most sensitive and biggest triggers, and so I'm really careful about not wearing scent. I might wear it other times, but not when I'm working.
Because I don't know if I do, to be honest. I don't think I do, but I'll be mindful of that. Actually, it's good.
Well, if you wear aftershave, again, it could be the same. It could be somebody's dad, somebody's brother, somebody's ex-husband. It can just trigger, big time.
I just want to ask the viewers that are watching right now: do any of you beautiful people have a question for Sue before we wrap up our talk? So have a think about a question if you've got one. could be very useful. Last question for Sue. I've run out of questions, Sue.
Well, I think we've pretty much run out of time as well, haven't we?
I think we have, to be fair. I think we have.
Yes,
and I think people are going to find this talk really, really interesting because, like you say, not many people know about it. You know, it's like I had a lady on the other week, Nikki Scott, hyperpressives.
Yes.
She said, you know, it's been around for like, I don't know, 15, 20 years. I can't remember how long she said. But it takes years for things to
get out, to really become established,
Absolutely.
Yeah, in Australia, they have Bowen practitioners at sports events as first aiders.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So in that country, it's proper out there.
Oh, it's real proper.
Wow.
It's big and it's accepted. It's mainstream.
Well, it doesn't look like we've got any questions coming in, Sue. So it's probably time to wrap it up now. But I've really enjoyed it. It's been.
Thank you so much. It's been nice. It's been good.
And I'll be coming to see you next week anyway.
Yes, I'll see you next week.
That's the point. I better check my diary, make sure I'm putting. Don't worry. I've got to work on my organisation a bit. So we always have something we've got to work on. So it's all good.
Yes.
Get there in the end.
With me, it's clutter.
you can't see my desk, Sue. Oh my God, it's like madness. But
my practice room isn't too bad, but my living space is.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we don't have time sometimes. We're busy enhancing our skills in what we do and learning.
Well, yes.
But all I want to say is thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real joy sharing this with everybody. And like I said, if you want to find out more about Sue, go onto her website, suewoodriffe.co.uk. There you'll find out. You'll be able to book a Bowen session one-to-one, and also you'll be able to do some emotional work if you want. You can do that online if you wish. So everyone that's watching, thank you for watching. Tell your friends about the channel because we have a different therapist on every Thursday right up to coming up to February. We've got some really interesting people coming on, so it's worth checking out to see if it's something that interests you. So thank you everybody, and I wish you all good night, and thank you, Sue.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Fantastic.